Should Israel take the Druze in Syria and add them into Israel, take over the lands and expand the border of Israel with Syria by taking Syrian land? There's two answers. First, the emotional one, and then the logical. What would Israel gain? Israel will gain by that. We know what the Druze will gain, a much better life in the future. They're just afraid to talk about it right now because, like I said, if the Uno card, gets Uno reverse card from Israel, they're stuck here. So that's a Syrian man living in Syria right now. He's a former Muslim. He is terrified for his life. He is hiding his identity, so I can't really share his identity with you. And this is the question I asked him. This is probably the first time that these boys have seen a female soldier. The first time these boys have seen a girl without a hijab on her head, walking outside, unless it's their mom or their sister. But just imagine what's going on through their head. A superior army force have just came, full of technology from the future, who completely defeated all their enemies they've been fighting all their life. And then one of these soldiers is a female soldier coming to a culture that has been taught to oppress female, that have been taught that female are way less than man, that it's not dignified, it's not honorable for a female to walk outside like this. A culture that completely empowered men and completely oppressed women, and now they're seeing the victorious army coming to their land led by a female with the most badass girls on the planet. And just that just plays with their brain. That just messes up so many people in the Arab world that just can't understand that. All their life they've been taught that women are way lower, that women are objects, and suddenly they're seeing a country that is treating women so nicely, so fairly, a country that have such a much better life than what they have, way better technology than what they have, and is living under much better moral guidelines and rules that they have. And that's just mind-blowing because they've been taught all their life that their way is the right way and the rest of the world, that is proper Islam. The world is in darkness and Islam is coming to open the world to darkness. And then suddenly someone comes from outside and open them to a much better reality, and that's not Islam. And that's just mind-blowing. So this was taken in Syria. That's the IDF soldiers who are in Syria right now being welcomed by some of the Syrian villages. And here's another very interesting video of a Druze Syrian man welcoming an IDF Druze commander and giving him this religious ribbon. It's like some kind of a blessing with the colors of the religion. It's something that you usually do when you go to the khilwat, to the prayer house, to Qabr al-Nabi, the grave of the Prophet, and welcoming them with open arms, welcoming them in the most peaceful way. The IDF has been asking them to help them gather all the weapons that were left behind by Hezbollah and by the Assad army so they can take it, destroy it, and make sure it doesn't reach to the hands of the terrorists who basically right now took over that government. So many of you have been asking me in the comments, should Israel take the Druze in Syria and add them into Israel, take over the lands and expand the border of Israel with Syria by taking Syrian land? Basically, the Druze villages are on the southern part of Syria connected to Israel, and Israel will just go and expand its border and take them under its wing. It all came after that video surfaced where the Druze came in that Game of Thrones city hall setting where the houses of the different Druze tribes came and met and said, should we ask Israel to take us? And they all said, yes, we want Israel to take us. Later on was followed by a video that came by official religious people saying, no, we don't want Israel to take us. We're part of Syria. We're going to stay here in Syria. And then another video. And it's been going on ping pong. Yes, take us, not take us. There's two answers. First, the emotional one, and then the logical one. And I'm going to give you both of them. The emotional answer is absolutely yes. I'm a Druze myself. I care for my people. I love my people. I want the best for my people. And the best country in the Middle East for Arabs, for any minority groups, for the Druze, is undoubtedly Israel. Israel will give them the best opportunity for life, for future. Israel will give them the best safety and security that they haven't had for the last 1,000 years under Muslim reign. The Druze living outside of Israel for the last 1,000 years have been living under the constant threat of genocide, of forcing them to convert to Islam or die, and they had to fight and hide for these last 1,000 years and learn to adapt to any radical, crazy environment that is around them just to survive. There is stories in Syria where villages of Druze people were raided by either ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the guys who took over the government, or by the government itself, and they were forced either to convert or die, and they executed many of them and convert them and forced them to become Muslims, or they were forced to join the Assad regime, the Assad army, and being sent to kill their own people. And when they resisted to do that, they were executed, basically. My relative from Syria who fled Syria, and I helped him personally flee Syria because the army, the government, and Nusra and ISIS were all after looking for him. So I had to help rescue him and bring him to Germany, where he sought asylum, and he completely integrated into society right now, and he's happy to live in Germany. My relative came and told me in his village, 250 Druze young men were forced to go to the Assad regime military, and they all died, disappeared, kidnapped, probably going to be found in these mass graves and these prisons being tortured, or just, killed in these modern day Nazi concentration camps that are happening in Syria, but the world doesn't care. And CNN does not report that. The only thing CNN does is actually help free a prisoner who was the guy who was torturing the Syrian people, who managed to, fool them to think that he's a prisoner. CNN will not see a genocide happening under their nose, but they will celebrate every stupid thing that radical Islam will do and make it look like it's good. My point is, 100%, I want the Druze in Syria to become part of Israel. I wish that they would be part of Israel. I wish that they can have the same life like me and my family had. We moved from my village, a Druze Arab village, when I was 4, and we moved to a Jewish city. We moved as a poor family, we had barely nothing, and we were able to build our life thanks to the opportunities that were given to any minority group in Israel. My sisters are highly educated, they both have a master's degree in social working. My brother is the head manager of the football club in my town, the official football club of a Jewish city. I was an officer in the army, my grandfather was a high-ranking officer in the army, in the Israeli army. So we were completely, the Druze in Israel have every opportunity on the table, like the Jews have, like the Christians have, like any minority, like the Muslims have. And because this is Israel. Israel is more like Europe, like the United States. Israel is democracy. So would I want my Druze relatives, family, distant family in Syria, in Lebanon, in the Middle East to have the same opportunity, the same chance for the children to be able to live in peace and without the fear of someone coming to take their daughters and kill them? Just like this guy said. He said, anyone that is gonna ensure our safety, anyone that's not gonna threaten to take our children or our daughters, we're with him. We are with him. Now, that was the emotional response. Now comes the logical one. And the logical one is it's complicated. You see, there's a lot of complications here, and you need to understand what is happening here. And that might go above many people's heads, especially if you're not coming from the Middle East. The Druze have been surviving under radical Islam, under Islam for the last 1,000 years. And the way they did that is by always being very smart, very politically correct, very cautious with how they maneuver this game between these different factions that just want to go and kill and destroy everything in their way. And for the Druze coming out and saying, we'd rather live under Israel, that means that they just, imagine you're playing Uno and you have your Uno card with you, and this is your best card. Join Israel. That is the card that all of you have been wanting, but you keep it very close because you don't want the other players to know that Nusra, the ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Assad regime, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Palestinians, you don't want them to know the card in your hand. Hezbollah. But then something happened to make the Druze realize that all the other options are way worse. Right now, Syria have been taken by Al-Qaeda, and that is way worse for the Druze than being under Assad, which was very bad for them as well. So the Druze came and said, you know what, we got to put this card down, guys. We're putting our card, Israel, take us. We want to be part of your country. We're going to be loyal citizen to your country. Now, by doing that, they revealed their card to all the other players on the table, which means that there's no turning back. If Israel comes and grabs the Israeli card, and that's my kids' notebooks. If Israel drops an Uno reverse card and says, no, take it back, we're not taking you, the Druze were just left with their pants down. The Druze have just shown that they don't hate Israel, that they don't want to destroy Israel, like many of these radicals over there. And that will immediately seal their fate as enemies. We need to kill them. I'll tell you even more. So I asked a Syrian man living in Syria right now. He's a former Muslim. He is terrified for his life. He is hiding his identity, so I can't really share his identity with you. But he's very concerned for what's happening with the rise of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban's taking over Syria. And this is the question I asked him. The Druze made a call to be joined by Israel and go under the Israeli government and protection. Why do you think they did that? And do you think it will be wise for Israel to agree? And this was his answer. About this question, I can understand their perspective and the concern they might have at the moment. The Islamist jihadists who have taken over could potentially apply Sharia law or govern by the extremist ideologies, putting the Druze and other ethnicities in Syria in danger. For the Druze, situation is different. Christians can pay jizya and avoid being forced to convert to Islam or face conflicts. But this rule only applies to Christians and the Jews. Many people know it as jizya. This is the Muslim way of basically, in Islam, the world must convert to Islam, to submit under Islam. And anyone who resists should be killed. It's considered anyone who's not a Muslim is an infidel, and you should either kill him or convert him. The only people that you don't have to kill, you don't have to force to be converted, are the Jews and the Christians, the people of the book, because they brought the book that later on, was the foundation of the Muslim religion. However, to make their life miserable, Islam have made these strict, oppressing rules of taxation, of governing. You need to pay 3, 4, 5 more time taxes than any Muslim citizen. You cannot build new temples. You cannot build new synagogues or churches. You cannot ride a horse. You cannot hold a sword. And there were many, many rules in the Islam. And the whole idea of these rules was to make your life so miserable that you come and say, guys, you know what? Let me just convert. Let me just convert. I will join you. I can't live like this anymore. What he's saying here that the Druze are not considered Muslims, which places them in danger, similar to the Yazidis or the ex-Muslim minorities. Even if the extremists were not as severe, they would still not treat these minorities as equal to Sunni Muslims. And that holds a key to understand the situation in Syria, to understand the situation in Turkey and many Muslim countries. If you're not Muslim, and if you're not Muslim, either Sunni or Shia, there is no way that you're going to be Class A citizen. You're going to be B, C, D, or even worse at best. That is the situation. That is moderate Islam. We're not talking about a radical Islam, which is basically just going to kill you and parade your body in the streets. Another threat is the possibility of war with Israel. The Druze communities would be on the front line in such scenarios. Being under Israeli protection will prevent this and ensure their safety. Historically, the Druze have faced oppression and violence, and with the fall of Assad regime, they fear further instability and persecution. And let me break this down for you. It's not all the Druze in Syria that asked to join Israel. There is Druze in different places in Sweden and other places in Syria that did not ask to be joined by Israel, but there's a Druze right at the border with Israel. And to better understand, when you look at the map, when the nation of Israel was established, there were Druze living all around Israel and Syria and Lebanon. There was no borders here as you see it today. And my family came from Syria, from Lebanon, and moved into Israel. And my grandfather had 2 older brothers. And these older brothers came to him when Israel, in 48, and told him, listen, we've been hearing all the talks in the Muslim streets. The Muslim armies are all gathering right now. When the Brits came and basically give the Jews, here's your part, and the Muslims, here your part, the Jews said, thank you. The Muslims said, heck no, we're going to genocide all the Jews from the river to the sea. And once the Brits were gone, the Muslims came and brought all their armies to go and kill all the Jews, genocide the Jews. And they've been trying to do so since then. That is the Palestinian story for you. Don't let anyone cowpoop you, okay? That is what is happening. And the Palestinian identity was always tied with the destruction and annihilation of Israel. And that is a problem that they screwed themselves, or they screwed the chance for ever having peace with Israel. Once they abandoned that genocidal idea, you might start seeing results of peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis, or between the Muslims living and identifying as Palestinians to the people in Israel, the Jews, the Christians, the Arabs, doesn't matter what. My grandfather's brothers came and told him, Mansour, I was named after him, the Arabs are going to come, they're going to kill all the Jews, and there's going to be a bloodthirsty war here. They said, from the river to the sea, we have wife and children, maybe let's not stay here. Let's go back to our mountain in Syria, and once things calm down, we can come down here and see what's happening and keep doing what we're trying to do, which is build a life and a future for ourselves. My grandfather told his 2 older brothers, listen, I understand you. You have wife and you have children. You want to protect them. It's going to be a war zone. Go back. I'm not going to hold that against you, but I'm staying here. I'm going to stand with the Jews, and we're going to fight beside the Jews. And what happened is the Arabs came and tried to genocide the Jews. The Jews won that war. The Arabs ran away. The Jews went and took over the land, the complete land of Israel, the 48 borders of Israel, and established the Israeli government as we know it today, securing these borders so no genocidal Holocaust attempt can happen again, like the Muslim tried, like the Nazis tried before. It's very interesting how the Muslims and the Nazis always like to go in bed with each other, and they just admire each other. Or at least the Muslims admire the Nazis. I think the Nazis were looking at them as just useful barbaric idiots that they can use for their plan, and once they're done with the Jews, they'll probably turn against them. But anyway, what happened is these villages got separated in half, and my grandfather was never able to reconnect with his family in Syria. We used to go as kids to Majd al-Shams and to the areas of the border with Syria, and we will stand there by what we call Jabal al-Sheikh, or the mountain of shouting, Harat Sakot. And the reason they call the mountain of shouting is because the Druze families will come from Israel and from Syria, and we'll stand there with binoculars, and we'll see our relatives, and we'll start talking to them with a megaphone, Hi, Ammi, Hamoud, and we'll start talking, Hada Ibn Mansour. My father will lift me up, and they all clap their hands, and that's my son there, and etc. And we used to talk to each other like that. So these were relatives who got separated. If you go to Majd al-Shams now, you can look and you can see the Druze village right across, like 100 meters, 200 meters away from the border. The border got separated right in between them. So these are the Druze who are asking now and said, you know what, let us go back and join our brothers and sisters in Israel. Life there is way better. They will ensure us safety. They will take care of our dignity. They will treat us with respect. They will not try to steal our children and daughters. Now, should Israel agree to that? I really hope so. That would be amazing. And here's another thing you need to know about the Druze. The Druze are the most loyal and peaceful citizens you can have. Their entire core religion says they're not allowed to have their own country. They shouldn't be involved in politics. They shouldn't be involved in a lot of these earthly possessions that just kind of take your focus away from serving your God, working your land. And further, the Druze were always fierce warriors and very good at defending themselves. They understand the Arab culture much better. So what would Israel gain? Israel will gain by that. We know what the Druze will gain, a much better life and future. They're just afraid to talk about it right now because, like I said, if the Uno card, gets Uno reverse card from Israel, they're stuck here. So that's why they're suddenly coming to, no, we don't want. They're really cautious about how to play this or what's going to be next. Now, obviously, what the Druze will win is they will gain the best life they can have in the Middle East or any Arab in the Middle East because that's under the Jews in Israel. That is the reality. What will Israel gain? Israel will gain these really good, peaceful citizens, will gain these really fierce warriors that are ready to fight and stand against radical Islam, against the jihadists. They will get people that understand the Middle East better than anyone. One of the craziest stories I remember, I was sitting with my friend who was a former officer in the Shabak, and we were talking about how when the Druze Israeli boy was kidnapped by Hamas, how the Druze have managed to humble the entire defense system of Israel, the Mossad, the Shabak, the IDF, and they were all just speechless. How did they do that? You see, one day Hamas kidnapped a Druze teenager who was involved in a car accident in the Palestinian territory. And suddenly they get a phone call by the government. Okay, listen guys, we have an Israeli citizen who's been kidnapped by Hamas. See how I say Israeli? They didn't say Druze or anything. They said an Israeli citizen kidnapped by Hamas. We gotta do something. And they all start panicking, the war room and everything, the Mossad, the Shabak, the special forces. How are we gonna do it? We don't wanna end up like Gilad Shalit. Every second counts right now because if we don't rescue him immediately, we might end up down the road 3, 4, 5 years later on giving back thousands of terrorists with blood on their hands just to bring back one Israel, like Israel did with Gilad Shalit. By the way, that's when Israel actually gave back Sinwar into Gaza after they saved him from death because he was having a brain tumor, and then ended up Sinwar turned back against Israel and did orchestrate October 7, the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. So they knew that we can't let this happen. We have to do something and rescue. And while they were thinking about different plans, getting satellite images and etc., that's what he's telling me. Suddenly they get a phone call, and the phone call saying, okay guys, stand down, he's back. And they're like, what? What do you mean stand down, he's back? Yeah, Hamas just gave him back. Hamas doesn't give back Israeli hostages. That's their biggest prize. There's no way that they did that. Why would they do that? And he's telling, well, the Druze from the village, some group of random Druze, just went and brought him back. And he told me, like, we, the Shabak, the Mossad, everybody was sitting there like, how the heck did they do that? And it's basically the Druze came and told them, listen, guys, it's very cute what you're doing. It's very American, European, all these stuff, but can you step aside for a second? We're going to speak our own language with these guys. We know the Arabic language, we know the culture, and I'm not going to tell you exactly how they did it because then this video is going to be canceled. But what they did is they went and they spoke the language of the Arab man and they brought back that hostage immediately. Hamas just said, okay, take him. We don't want to mess with you guys. So the Druze, they know very well how to handle the situation in the Middle East, and by having them join Israel, you're getting, it's going to be a win-win for both parties with that regard. Further, Israel will be able to gain control of the Golan Heights, the Syrian part of it, which will give them a better view and defense, a better strategic positioning in the entire region to defend themselves from another October 7th, from another genocide attempt. Because look what Assad has been doing to his own people. There's mass graves right now with hundreds of thousands of bodies that were found that were never been seen since Nazi Germany Holocaust concentration camps. And that was against his own people. So just imagine what he would have done to the Jews. And that's why the Jews can play games. That's why Israel cannot play games with that. So by having that secured border with the people in that land, they said, this is our land, take it. We will be under you. You rule over us. You protect us. We protect you. Let's be together just like our cousins in Israel, just like my family and my relatives. That was, like I said, the emotional response. Now comes the logical response, which, like I said, is a little bit more complicated. When you grew up in Syria, all your life, you were growing up under an oppressing, radical jihadist regime. Undoubtedly, don't let anyone fool you. This is Syria. For a reason, was considered the axis of evil. The whole entire regime, the entire ideology of that country was very evil. And I'm not saying that all Syrians were evil. Many of them were just trying to live and survive under this horrific, modern Nazi Muslim regime. But what happened is, many of them got radicalized. Many of them are been taught from young age, anti-Semitism, been taught to hate the Jews, to fear the Jews. And that managed to even infiltrate some of the Jews. Because imagine now you are growing in Nazi Germany in a village somewhere. Obviously, the whole indoctrination of the government is going to be Nazi. I'm not going to say every German is Nazi, although many of them were. But if you came and you met with him and you asked him, what do you think about America? What do you think about Britain? What do you think about Russia? What do you think about, I don't know what? The Jews. They're probably going to have very, very concerning views because that's what they've been indoctrinated so far. Now, in no way do I think that if Israel will take the Druze into Israel, you're going to have Druze suicide bombers or Druze, terrorists. That's something that the Muslims do. The Druze don't do that. The Christians don't do that. 99.999% of all terrorist activities in the world are happening under Islam, and that is just a fact. I'm not bringing anything new to the table. The gods of the algorithm, don't cancel this video. I'm just stating facts that you can find clearly in the internet. But still, where will the loyalty be? Some will come and say, thank you, Israel, we're completely loyal to you, but maybe some others will still have friends in Syria, really bad friends. And it's going to make it hard for Israel to immediately start trusting them. You might need several years to gain that trust, also for them to really understand that Israel is not evil, that Israel is actually the best thing that can happen to them, because not all of them understand that yet. Many of them do, but not all understand that yet. Second, and here comes the tricky part, what kind of citizens do they want to be? Because you see, in Israel, you have the majority of the Druze are Class A citizens with all rights and obligations like anyone. Actually, the only groups in Israel that have all rights and obligations are the Jews and the Druze. Christians and Muslims and other groups have all rights, don't have all obligations. Just let that sink in, how crazy that is. And then they call Israel an apartheid. It's literally the opposite of apartheid on steroids. The Druze of Majd al-Shams, when they became part of Israel and their towns got cut in half is in Syria, half is in Israel, they came to the Israeli government and told them, listen guys, we're thankful, we want to be here, that's great, but we still have relatives over there. My cousin, my uncle, my sister, my mother. If I join the army right now, part of the mandatory joining the IDF agreement that the Druze and the Jews had, they're going to kill my family. Further, every second day, a politician in Israel comes and says, let's bring back the Golan Heights, give it back for peace and I don't know what. So if one day someone is going to decide to give it back, we Druze, we're loyal to the land, we're going to stay on the land, we're going to give back that land, they're going to come and they're going to execute all of us. They're going to butcher us in the most horrific way. So we got to play that game and keep saying, yeah, we're Israelis, but once in a while we go and say, yeah, we're part of Syria, we support Syria, we don't want to have a citizenship, we're not joining the army. That was cool, that was cute for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. After 10 years, give or take, the Druze in Israel started coming to their cousins, their relatives, the Druze in Majd al-Shams, and started telling them, guys, come on, we're carrying all the burden. Like anyone in this country, you guys are enjoying all the privileges, but you're not. You should join as well. You should pitch in under the stretcher. You should go to the army. You should serve this country in any possible way because it is your country like it's ours and you're enjoying all the fruits of this country. And that created some kind of a tension. Some of the Druze in Israel were not very happy with how the Majd al-Shams were dealing. Some of them were still holding to the old ways. After October 7, with the massacre of the Druze children in Majd al-Shams, I went there with some of my Jewish friends to visit and pay respect to my relatives. The Druze were shocked by how Israel treated them like their first-class citizens. And not only that, Israel went to war with Hezbollah, not just because of that, but that was, the straw that broke the back of the camel. I think that's a saying. Akash shavar et gav ha'gamad. Yeah, in Hebrew that's a saying. I don't know why would a straw break the back of a camel. But anyway, they went to war, took down the number 2 of Hezbollah. Later on, they took down Nasrallah, the entire Hezbollah regime, and collapsed the entire Lebanese Hezbollah terrorist groups. And that's why Syria was able to get free. So that chain reaction happened pretty much after the Druze kids were killed by Hezbollah in Majd al-Shams while they were playing football. And the Druze, they saw that. They saw, wow, this country, not only that it gives us all the safety and stability and respect to practice our religion, it's also willing to go to war on our behalf to protect us. Because when a Druze kid dies, it doesn't mean, because Druze blood is not less than a Jewish blood. It's not less than a Muslim blood and a Christian blood, and this is Israel for you. Now, if the Druze in Lebanon will come first from Syria, will come and say, yeah, we want to join, but we want to join under the same conditions, and I would say, guys, that's becoming a bit hard. Israel have enough parasites right now that don't want to join the army. There's enough religious groups from all kind of types that are saying, yeah, we don't want to share the burden. You guys go and fight and sacrifice your life to protect us, but we're going to stay home and do nothing or just pray for you. And that is making a lot of Israelis upset. That's making a lot of Israelis who are right now saying, I'm working, I'm paying taxes, I'm going to the military, giving the best of my life, I'm losing my best friends to fight for freedom, while there's these groups who are just sitting there and enjoying all the privileges that will bring you to the table, but not willing to go and join us in the fight, or at least support the soldiers and the army as they go to defend Israel from the radicals who want to exterminate the Jews and anyone in Israel, basically. They were killing Muslims, Druze, Arabs. They were killing dogs. They were killing animals when they came. And that's what Hamas did. It's a death cult. Same with Hezbollah, same with Iran. Now, if Israel says no, like I said, and Israel pulls the reverse UNO card, what happened is once the rebels will take over Syria completely, they're very likely going to shift their anger and their frustration against Israel. And let's read what the guy actually kept saying. Historically, the Druze have felt oppression and violence, and with the fall of Assad regime, they fear... Okay, we read that. Regarding the second part of the question, the situation is indeed complicated. The Druze communities in Syria are aware that the quality of life for the Druze in Israel is better than in Syria, which is why they made the request in the first place. However, Israel is already engaged in multiple conflicts in various fronts. Responding to the Syrian Druze request could potentially trigger another conflict and provoke anger among Muslims who have long claimed that Israel seeks to expand and take Arab lands. This narrative might gain traction among leftist groups in the West, further spreading hatred towards the Jews in Israel. It's amazing how Muslims and Arabs in the Middle East know always that you can count on the leftists in the West to always support the radicals, to always support the anti-Semites. How do we know that we can always count on these Democrats in the US or the left college, professors and students to always side with the genocidal radicals, to side with the government of Iran, to side with the government of Syria, to side with Hezbollah, to side with Hamas against the West, against America, against Israel? Isn't that just mind-blowing? This is one of the craziest things that we woke up after October 7 when we started seeing students in the US going and saying Osama bin Laden was right. When we start seeing students in the US, in Oxford, all kinds of places, holding flags of Hezbollah. The terrorist organizations have killed the most Americans in the history of terrorism. You have Americans holding that flag and saying we support them, we stand with them against Israel, the only ally that America have in the Middle East, or at least in that region. That's insane. That is just mind-blowing. Hamas counted on the American Western leftists. Hezbollah counted on them. Iran is counted on them. The Assad regime, who was doing modern-day concentration camps, killing all these people in this country for the last 50 years, and it's not like it was not known. I knew about it. Every Syrian knows about it. The West knew about it. But for some reason, they always knew they can count on CNN and all these left-wing media and these leftist parties and college groups that they will always have their back, that they will always protect them, because they're not doing a very good job of protecting themselves. They're saying clearly, Allahu Akbar, we're going to go kill all the infidels. We want to destroy Israel, America, and everybody. But then the leftists in the US or in Europe will come and say, no, what they really mean is, and will start making excuses for them. And that's what this is, a Syrian man speaking that. As I mentioned, it is a complex issue, and ultimately it's a decision for Israel and its people to make. Talking about the subject a few days ago, jokingly, I said to my mom that I wish we were Druze in the South, as we would have finally about to become part of the great country like Israel. LOL. Oof. Isn't that crazy? Take that, all you numbskull calling Israel an apartheid. How can you deal with this reality? It's probably melting their brains that so many minorities in Syria now are asking to be joined by Israel. The Yazidis are asking Israel, help us. The Alawis, the people that were in the same religion faction like Assad, doesn't mean that they were all part of, what Assad did, are coming and say, well, they're going to come in and going to genocide us. Israel, please help us. The Druze. So all these minorities group are running away towards Israel and asking Israel, the enemy country, to come and save them. Not America, not Europe, because they lost hope in these left-wing entities that are hovering around and just talking nonsense and basically helping radical Islam survive longer in the Middle East and keep oppressing the Middle East. One thing that you have to understand, once the radical Muslims who have taken down Syria now, once they establish themselves, mark my word, they're going to turn against Israel. I'll be very surprised if not. And one of the reasons is because, and it might surprise you, it's probably not what you think, but one of the reasons is that terrorist organizations, they don't know how to govern a country. Hamas doesn't know how to do that. Hezbollah doesn't know how to do that. The Houthis don't know how to do that. So what they do is once they take over the country and the countries are getting frustrated and they're stealing their money and they're oppressing them, they start seeing that the West is sending humanitarian aid, money and food and supplies to support them. And what they realize, hey, wait a second. If we keep oppressing our people, we keep getting this free money. This is like the greatest radical Muslim startup in the history. Let's keep doing that. Hamas did that. Look how rich they became. So let's do that. So they start oppressing their country and start getting a lot of aid and support from the West, and they will keep doing that. And then later on, to justify it, to justify why after 10 years, how come there's no more schools? How come for 10 years we got so much money? How come there's no hospitals? There's no streets? There's no sewage system? There's no education system? What's going on? Where's all the money going? So what they do is like, all right, guys, we are kind of screwed. Mahmoud, come with an idea and just blame the Jews. And they go, Allah Akbar, it's because of the Jews, because of Zionists. And what happens is they start turning everybody against the Jews. So it becomes hating the Jews in the Muslim world have become not only a religious kind of fatwa, but also a political move to unite the people. When you want to get people in your mosque, start preaching against the Jews, and they all come to that mosque because it's very easy. And that's been the ABC of anti-Semitism through the history of mankind. For the last 3,000 years, that's been anti-Semitism. Always use the Jews as a scapegoat to blame them, to rally people out of fear for political means and agendas and etc. It have a spiritual aspect, but it have very political and geographical aspect as well too. So once they will do that in Syria, they're going to come and start calling a jihad against the Jews. And where is that going to happen? That's going to happen with the border of Israel. And who's on that border? The Druze. So once all these jihadists are going to come to the Druze villages, what do you think they're going to do with them? They're going to either kill them, force them to convert, start abusing them, and they're going to probably start using them as human shields, start building tunnels under their houses, start shooting rockets into Israel, and they know what's going to happen. They know this is going to bring death and destruction. So they don't want to be part of that because that's what Hamas did to the Gazans, that's what Lebanon, Hezbollah did to the Lebanese, that's what Iran is doing to its own people. That's what the Houthis are doing. That's what basically every radical Muslim group that we see in the Middle East is doing. When they can't win a war, they start using their own people as human shields to promote the radical jihadist ideology. So with that in mind, the Druze know that this is a very bad thing for them. And that's why they decided to come and bring that Uno card and says, you know what, let's reveal it, guys. We want to be with you. All the other options are way worse. So please take us, and in hope that Israel will do. Will Israel do that? There's going to be a lot of backlash from the international community, a lot of backlash from all kind of groups. But if you ask me, that is the right thing to do. And I tell you even what, if Israel does not do that, and the Druze in the Golan Heights will start fighting for their life against these radical Muslims who are coming to kill them and oppress them because, they're not part of Islam, they're infidels, they should be killed, and obviously they like the Jews, we gotta kill them. The Druze in Israel will have a say. They're not gonna let their brothers and sisters die. So if Israel choose to come and help them as an official, or if the Druze in Israel come and say, you know what, Israel, step out of the way. We're going to go and rescue our people. What would you do if your family was living under radical Islam? I mean, who would want his family to live under radical Islam? Who? In his sane mind, who would want his family to live in a society that oppresses women, that execute gay people, that doesn't let free speech? This guy that was talking to me from Syria, he's a young man that have long hair, and he was going outside his house and he had his hair in a man bun, kind of, in a cuckoo. And he got approached by some of these radical Taliban, Al-Qaeda people that took over the government and told him, cut your hair, get a haircut. If we see you again, something's gonna happen. And so why? I said, because women only have haircuts like this. You should not have this man bun. So they're already starting to enforce this radical, oppressing, jihadist rules. He even sent me a picture of one of the cars in his street that had the saying on it in Arabic, saying, I'm trying to remember from the top of my head, I'm going to show you the picture in the video, say something like, Christian, the people of the cross, we are coming for you. You are next, in a threatening way. Like, once we're done here, we're going to deal with you. So this is the radical Syria that the Syrians are waking up for. And for many Syrians, this was, in the beginning, brought a lot of hope, the toppling of Assad, and now it's going to dim down into winter, into radical Muslim winter. And for the Druze, the same thing. That toppling of Assad brought the hope that maybe now, when everybody is completely chaos, we can actually go and join Israel. Maybe Israel will take us. Will they do and will they not? That is still remain to be answered. I didn't hear anything official from the Israeli government, but I would very, very much like that to happen, because I think in the big picture, who cares about what the Europeans say? They have no idea what's going on in the Middle East. Who cares about what these radical jihadists say? I mean, they just want to kill everyone. You should not listen to them. These people will benefit greatly from joining Israel, and Israel will benefit greatly from actually taking this part of the land and adding it to Israel to better protect itself. And you're not stealing the land from anyone. You're actually taking the land with the people in it and bringing it to Israel and says, okay, now we're going to give you much more freedom. We're going to give you much more technology. You welcome to the future, basically. That's what it's going to mean for them. So, guys, I hope I was able to answer your questions. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comment. In general, just go and do the whole shebang. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Help this channel keep growing. And if you want to help my channel, help me keep doing these videos for you, because after all, I am doing this for free and out of my own free time. Go and check my Patreon, where you can find direct, practical ways to support my work. But until then, don't do anything stupid. And in general, what? Here's a good one. When you open a computer and you see on the desktop a lot of folders, a lot of files open, and it's downloading a few antivirus programs in the same time, and it's, there's music running in the background and a film that you never really closed, and just the computer is overloaded and it works slow. It just works slow. And you know that in order for it to work right, you just need to start deleting stuff, organizing all your folders, and making it just clean and clear and focused. And that's sometimes the human brain. When we have too many tabs open, when we have too many unfinished tasks, too many things that are just bothering our mind, what happens is, instead of your brain being, you're never going to have 100% concentration on something. You might at best be able to bring 50, 60% concentration. You're always going to be drifting, daydreaming, thinking about that, and you're getting distracted by small stuff. But when you have too many things open in your mind, then at best you're able to give 10% of pure concentration, pure determination towards something, because you're dealing with the kids in the kindergarten, the school, the job, the unfinished tax report that I have to do, the obligations that I have to my grandma and to my neighbors, and etc. and etc. So many things. I need to fix the car, do the garage. And then you go through life without being able to fully be maximizing your efficiency towards the goals that you want to achieve. So my tip, and I do this on myself as well, is once in a while, first of all, get a good sleep, restart the computer. Second of all, fix the folders, put the pictures in the right folders, the documents, fix it all so it's all organized and clean, and then you'll be able to better focus and know what you want to achieve in your life. And most important, to eliminate the things that are stopping you from achieving these goals. I see that in this channel as I'm trying to make these videos for you. I'm always trying to see how can I improve so I can get to where I want to be, which is here, right now, in the chair, in front of the camera, talking about the things that I'm knowledgeable about, the things that I'm passionate about. But for that, I need to take care of all the mess around me. And that is something that is a good tip. That is a good tip. Take it or leave it. It's up to you. But until then, guys, don't do anything stupid. And in general, just don't do anything that... Someone left a comment that maybe I should start vlogging from Ethiopia, because they have a lot of good coffee there, and I will never run out of coffee. So maybe that's a good idea. Some good Arabica coffee in Ethiopia. Let's try that. Funny story, actually, about... I've heard that. I'm not so sure how true it is, but I've heard that about Ethiopia. There used to be a story that the Muslims in Addis Ababa came to the king of Ethiopia and told him, let us build a huge mosque here in Africa. They've been doing that all around Africa in places